everybody. Kia ora means hello in New Zealand talk. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Pete Robin. I am a 60-year-old living in Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. So my purpose is to get other middle-aged men as healthy as they could possibly be. So my podcast is called See Your Toes Again. Now, the purpose of that name means, quite literally, if you're standing up and you look down to your toes, if you can see them, then you don't really have a problem. If you look down and you can't see them because your belly is in the way, then there is a potential problem. If you are in your 40s or 50s, then that problem could lead to a lot of other health issues, and those health issues could really cause a lot of problems further down the track. In fact, there's a few of those issues that could cause major problems even today or tomorrow. So, like, for example, a heart attack. So I want to help you guys sort yourselves out, if you want me to say so. So this podcast is designed for guys in their 40s and their 50s. If you're an age outside of that and you're listening, or if you're a different genre, if you're not a bloke in his 40s or 50s, then you're welcome to listen. Hey, I can't stop you, and I certainly invite you along. It's just that as far as who I'm talking to and who I'm directing this podcast to, it's chaps in their 40s and 50s. Like I said, I'm 60. I turned 60 a couple of weeks ago. So we could add 60s to that too. Hey, 60 is the new 40 apparently. So this is a weight loss, health and well-being show. So that covers quite a big area. It's primarily going to be, as far as you guys are concerned, I'd like to think most of it will be on weight loss, how to lose excess body fat. I've written a book which is on my website, which is also See Your Toes Again. And in the book I say repeatedly, we shouldn't say lose weight. We should be saying lose body fat, because losing weight can mean losing muscle. And a lot of the other diets that are on the market will do that. You'll lose weight, but what you're actually doing, you'll lose a little bit of fat, but you'll lose a whole lot of muscle, and you'll end up feeling like crap in the process. So we're talking about weight loss in as much as losing body fat. We're talking about ways that you can exercise a lot more to become healthier and stronger. So you could hopefully gain a bit of muscle as well as lose a bit of body fat. And I'd like to talk about ways, not today, but another podcast, ways that can change your routines so that you can start putting time aside for yourself, for looking after your own health. Because most guys I talk to go, oh, look, how the hell am I going to get to the gym? I just don't have time. I've got this, that, and start rattling off all the things that they have to do. And looking after themselves and getting down to the gym, or getting out for a decent bit of exercise isn't on the cards. Incidentally, I don't like a lot of cardio, so most of my work is resistance training related. And on that basis, once you get into it, once you get over the initial stigma, it's actually quite good, and it's very challenging. Hey, I digress. So, can you look down and see your toes? On with the show. I hope you enjoy it. Please feel free to message me on my website. I'll talk about that at the end. And if you like it, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you very much. Here are some of the illnesses that can be affected if you're a middle-aged man and you're overweight. Most of you know type 2 diabetes. How many of you know that high blood pressure is directly related to your weight? What happens there effectively, I don't want to delve into this in too much detail in this particular moment, but effectively, when you have lots of fat, it's not just on your belly and on your arms and legs, it's also inside your rib cage, and that type of fat is called visceral fat, and it's quite nasty. And it can accumulate around your veins and your arteries and inside your arteries. Now that means if you have an artery pipeline and then you've got all this fat built up inside it, then the pipeline diameter effectively has been reduced. So there's not as much space for the blood to flow through. That means for your heart to push the same amount of blood through the smaller hole, it has to exert more pressure. So the poor old heart has to pump harder. So hence you end up with high blood pressure. So the high blood pressure is directly correlated in a lot of instances to your body fat level. If we can reduce your body fat level, we can in turn reduce your high blood pressure. That's just something to bear in mind. Another problem that a lot of middle-aged men have is the potential for heart disease. And of course, the really bad one and somewhat acute is heart attacks. So you're here today, you're not here tomorrow. There are apparently in the United Kingdom, there is a heart attack victim comes into a UK hospital every 5 minutes. And you think about that. By the time you've finished listening to this podcast, if you listen to the end of it, I don't know how long I'm going to talk for, but we can assume that there have been a number of people wander into a hospital or been dragged into a hospital, driven into a hospital, ambulanced into a hospital with a heart attack. So that's something to bear in mind. Gout. Gout is a factor of being overweight. There's a few other things about it. It used to be called a rich man's disease. It can be associated with rich foods. I had a friend in New Zealand who, because I'm a Kiwi, by the way, I had a friend in New Zealand who used to get gout every time he ate too much seafood because the seafood was really rich and it gave him gout. A lot of fatty foods don't help gout. Fatty liver disease can be associated with it. It's often associated with excess alcohol, but fatty liver can be also apparently caused by excess fat. And inflamed joints is probably something that you are afflicted with, and you think, oh God, it's just bloody painful. You know, you wake up in the morning, you climb out of bed to go to the toilet, and it takes you 5 minutes for your knees to start working. And you think, I can't do any jogging, I can't do any sports. I struggle to just walk around the house because of my knees and my other joints and my back, my lower back especially. I'm sure you can relate. Not me, I'm okay, but I'm sure you can relate to a lot of these sorts of things. And those things are directly related to body fat, and I'll talk to you more about that possibly in another podcast, because inflamed joints is a really big one. And it affects every minute of your day when you're trying to walk around the house. And it's something that can be rectified without having to knock back tablets all the time. Incidentally, I find, like, for example, with my back is really good just about all the time. It starts to ache, ironically, when I haven't been doing my deadlifts and my squats at the gym. And you'd think when I'm deadlifting very heavy weight, well, for me, very heavy weights at the gym, you'd think, and a deadlift means you're putting all of that, I'm literally lifting up a set of weights that are sitting on the floor, and I've got to stand up straight with them. And it's a huge lift, and it puts a lot of weight on your lower back. You'd think if something was going to make your lower back sore, that's what it would be. And a set of squats, well, you've got weights sitting on a bar, and you lift them off the rack, and then you're standing up straight, and then you're crouching down to when you're, the phrase is ass to the grass, if you're going to do it properly. And then you've got to squeeze the hell out of yourself and get back up to standing straight. Now that puts a lot of weight on your back as well. And you'd think that would cause all sorts of problems. And yet the times when my back doesn't feel sore is when I've been doing those. And if I've had a week or two off, that's when my back will start not being sore, but I'll just start to feel it in the mornings when I wake up, and instead of bouncing out of bed, I'll roll out of bed. So these are all things that middle-aged men have to be concerned about. Now, I'm not here to lecture you about that. We can talk about all of that sort of stuff in more detail later. What I'm here to talk about is how we as a team, you and I, can figure out how to get rid of the body fat that you've got how to become healthier. And if you work on what I suggest, then this is easy enough to do. We now I don't. This is my first podcast, and I'm a bit nervous, to be honest. In fact, being a bit nervous is a bit of an understatement. So if I fumble and stumble and use wrong words, you have to forgive me. So my line of approach to dieting, and I hate that phrase because it's not a diet, but it is a way of, effectively, a lot of people say it's a way of life. It is diet in as much as the diet that we eat, as opposed to dieting where you restrict food, which most people think of a diet as, oh, well, I'm only allowed to eat 1,500 calories today. Well, it's not that sort of diet. You can eat as many damn calories as you want. The diet is that there are certain foods you can eat and there are certain foods you can't eat. Now, the certain foods you can eat are protein. We like to eat lots of protein, and I can talk about that in more detail on another podcast. I'll mention it shortly as well. And lots of fat. Now, the fat is where you gain your energy from, because what we're also going to do is limit how many carbohydrates you have. So carbohydrates are your current way of, if you're not ketogenic at the moment, then they're your current way of gaining energy. They're what keeps you moving around, metabolizing, breathing. Everything else is the carbohydrates you eat. They are supplying you with your energy source. Carbohydrates include potatoes, rice, pasta, spaghetti, anything with flour in it, because the flour, or the product of flour, is a carbohydrate. Cakes, biscuits, scones, all of that palaver, they're all carbohydrates. We can go on about that. And most root vegetables, onions, carrots, all of those, they're all carbohydrates, or they have carbohydrates in them as their primary. That's the main reason we eat potatoes, apart from because they soak up the gravy so well, is because they are a source of energy. So when I was growing up, we'd have meat, we'd have vegetables, which would be like cabbages and carrots and stuff, and then we'd have a big splop of mashed potatoes on the plate. It was great because they could be drowned in butter. That's another story altogether. But the potatoes effectively gave us our energy source. So what we're going to do in this this diet, ketogenic diet, is we're going to get rid of the carbohydrates, all of those foods I just mentioned. And instead, that means that our energy, our body doesn't have any energy to pull upon, because if we're not going to eat carbohydrates, it's a bit like asking your car to drive down the road with no petrol in the tank. Think of it, if you like, as we're going to change the car from using petrol to using diesel. Now, fats can do the same job as carbohydrates, and there's a lot of debate about some of this sort of stuff that I'm going to mention. There's a lot of argument in the different dietary fields between people who love carbohydrates and people who hate fats, and then you've got the fat lovers and the carb haters, and then you've got the paleos, and you've got the carnivores, and so on. So I'm in between most of those, but leaning ketogenic. So with ketogenic, as I'm saying, we eat lots of fats, and we have to teach our bodies, instead of burning carbohydrates, which we can compare to petrol, we're going to teach our bodies to burn fats instead. Now, this is fats that come out of what we eat. It's not the same as the fat that's stuck on your belly just yet. Now, what that does is a number of things. Here it does get political, and there's lots of people that come up with different ideas. Everyone has an idea of what used to happen 20,000 years ago, but generally, if you can imagine Mr. Caveman wandering around, he wouldn't have had very much access to carbohydrates that we have access to. He wouldn't have had a nice fresh apple. He wouldn't have been able to help himself to a banana unless he was in certain parts of the world. He wouldn't have had any access to fruit except for a certain time of the year, which would be late summer, as you know, when you can go picking raspberries and blackberries and all the apples and plums are ripe on the trees. He wouldn't have been able to get very good potatoes and carrots because all of these root vegetables that we take for granted now are all, they're not, I'm not saying genetically engineered, but they are hybridized. We get the best of a bunch. We seed those plants to create more of that subtype, and we can end up making different cultivars which can produce, say, bigger potatoes, juicier potatoes, nicer potatoes. And you can imagine 20,000, 30,000 years ago, these potatoes wouldn't have been very tasty at all. They would have been shriveled up tubers. Same with carrots and everything else. These have all been bred to look wonderful now, but they wouldn't have been so very bloody nice back in those days. Likewise with an apple, you get a nice big juicy red delicious apple. That's a hybridized product compared with a horrible little crab apple that they may have had to put up with 20 or 30,000 years ago. So if they didn't have all those carbohydrates to eat, they would have eaten a lot of meat when they could catch meat. Catch that, a rabbit has practically no fat on it, but some other animals like, say, a wild boar, a pig, a lot of those other animals would have had quite a bit of fat on them. So they catch the animals, they eat the meat, they would have relished the fat just the same as we do, let's face it. If you had the opportunity to chew into a nice steak and you were told that you were allowed to eat the fat on the side of the steak, you probably would. And so it was the fat that created the energy for them, and they wouldn't have had too much energy coming from carbohydrates. Vegetables like leafy vegetables, like the ones like salad vegetables, that's what I'm trying to say. They're all carbohydrates, but there's not a lot of carbohydrate, not a lot of sort of sugary value, food value in them. So at that stage, they would have been, supposedly, I'm talking about the cavemen now, not the salads, would have been primarily ketogenic. And that's where other people will go, oh, no, that's not true. They would have been largely vegetarian, or they would have been largely some other thing. But they would have, let's face it, they would have relished the thought of catching a decent wild boar, wild pig in the bush, in the woods, and bringing it back, chopping it up, maybe cooking it on the fire, depending on what age we are talking about in history, and then devouring it and enjoying slobbering all over that lovely juicy fat as well. And that would have given them their energy as well as their protein. So that's the problem now. I mentioned that there was fruit like all of your strawberries and raspberries, blackberries and apples and plums and whatever else fruit were available, but they were only available for like a month, maybe 2 months in summertime. And for the rest of the time, they weren't available. They just didn't grow. Fruit turn up at a certain time of the year. Our bodies are apparently designed to grab the sugars in those fruits and make the most of them. And they effectively make us put weight on in the form of fat so that we can fatten up for winter. So it just happens that fruit turn up in late summer. Our ancestors would have gouged themselves stupid on those fruit and got fat as a process. Bearing in mind, when they were chasing that wild boar, they would have had to do a lot of running, a lot of hunting, a lot of all sorts of stuff, energy consumption to finally track down that wild boar and kill it, drag it back to where they ate, where they back to their camp, and then skinned it and eaten it. Whereas raspberries, blackberries, all of these things, you don't have to chase your prey. All you're going to be doing is standing around all the bushes, which would have been, I imagine, quite a few bushes, and just basically eat yourselves rotten. incidentally, the sugars inside those fruit also did other things to them. It didn't just make them fat. It stopped them from feeling hungry. So we're talking about fructose, which is a natural sugar in all of these fruit. So it stopped them from being hungry so they could eat more. Now, that's really important because if you take fructose and these sugars out of your diet, you'll be less likely to overeat. So effectively, what the ketogenic diet is doing is it's returning us to how, again, people will argue with me for saying this, but it's returning us to how our bodies are designed to live, not how our bodies do live. Because now, of course, we have access to sugar every day, every week, every month of the year. And hence, our bodies are fattening up for winter, but they're never having a winter, and they're never stopping from eating the fructose, so they continue to fatten up. Which is also why even when you are on a so-called healthy diet, as long as you're eating some sugar, some fructose, then you will struggle to lose weight. So you can exercise lots, you can diet lots, you can reduce your calories, and the fructose in your foods that you're still eating will still keep you fat. I'm going to buy some bran, like all bran. I've got some of that in my cupboard downstairs, actually, which I bought a few weeks ago to actually, it was to take photos of it for my book, which you can find on my website, See Your Toes Again. I need to get some low-fat yogurt, and what else? Maybe some sliced peaches, and chuck them all in a bowl. And that might be somebody's idea of a healthy breakfast. And let's chuck in also a glass of delicious orange juice. And this is where people think that's really healthy and it's going to get them well started for the day. But effectively, that healthy breakfast has got a huge amount of sugar involved in it. The bran, surprisingly, if you don't believe me, look on the label, on the box, is got a lot of sugar in it to make it palatable. The low-fat yogurt, or yogurt, depends where you're from, is the same. They've taken the fat out of the yogurt, and so then it became pretty darn bland, so they've added sugar into the yogurt to make it taste better. And the orange juice is just the concentration of about 9 or 10 oranges squeezed up, and that is full of sugar because otherwise it would be sour as hell. You probably wouldn't be able to eat it. You'd try eating a grapefruit, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So what happens, therefore, is that you've had this really healthy breakfast, but what you've really done is load yourself up with sugar. It's got very little protein in it, and protein is the building blocks for your body. And it's got lots of sugar and carbohydrates, which gives you at least a burst of energy. If not a continuous energy, then at least it gives you a burst and makes you feel great for an hour or two. So the benefit of carbohydrates is that they give you lots of energy, and they give you lots of energy very quickly. You eat carbs, you absorb them into your bloodstream quite rapidly, and you then have the energy to do your daily things. But the problem also, therefore, is that you can quickly run out of energy. And that's when you get hangry in the middle of the afternoon. A perfect example is at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You've had lunch, a nice carved up meal full of sugars and carbohydrates. Your body has done well with that. It's all hit your bloodstream. Your insulin, which is another story altogether, comes out because you've got too much sugar in your bloodstream. It grabs a whole bunch of energy out of your bloodstream and it takes it away to your liver to turn into fat. And so suddenly you go from having too much energy and feeling great to not having enough energy, and then, of course, you feel really tired. That's the 2 o'clock crash. Now, when you switch to just burning fats, and we'll talk a lot more about that in another podcast, not right now, or I'm good at talking too much, so what happens, of course, is I end up running out of time. When you burn fats instead of carbohydrates, it's totally different. The fats absorb into your bloodstream a lot slower, and because you feel full quicker with fats, you don't overeat with them. And so then you'll end up being in a position where you have a much more stable energy level all day long. Now, when I'm talking about fats, I'm talking about fats that you're eating, not fats that are on your belly. Now, but that brings me to another point is once you're what we call fat adapted or metabolically adapted, then in between meals when you're ketogenic and you're starting to get a bit peckish because your dietary fat levels are you're starting to use up all of that energy, then your body's in a position where it can bugger off and pull some of the fat off your belly or out of your bum and convert that energy, that fat, to energy that can be then used. And that's how a ketogenic diet will end up helping you lose weight because you won't overeat generally. You'll eat only when you only need to eat when you feel like eating. You don't have to have 3 meals a day. You can have, today I had 2 meals. I had breakfast at about 10 o'clock when I was hungry. And I didn't really get hungry again, sort of like till about 4 o'clock. And then I thought, well, I'm going to the gym at 5 and I don't want to have a big feed at 4. So I just hung out as I usually do and went to the gym, did a very happy workout. It was, it was, today was back muscles and abdominals, which is I kind of like it, to be honest. It's hard. It's a hard workout, but it's not as hard as some of the other workouts that I do. And got home at 7, and then cooked up some chicken and a salad out of a green leaf salad with a whole bunch of other stuff in it, and ate that. And that meal had plenty of protein and plenty of dietary fat. So that got my system back up and running. And in the meantime, though, I would have burnt a little bit of fat off this afternoon in between my meals. So that's what the ketogenic diet is all about. Now, where does that leave you? If you're in a position where you've got excess weight, you've tried all sorts of other diets, they haven't particularly worked, you're frustrated, you have decided pretty much, if you're like a lot of people, you've probably decided, well, it looks like I'm stuck with this damned excess weight. The problem is, as I mentioned before, it's not good for you. It's bloody unhealthy, and there's every chance that it could really limit either how well you live or literally how long you live. If you have a heart attack, it could seriously, obviously screw up there's nothing like a heart attack to screw up your average day. So we need to try to change that. And the way I would like to change that is to get you involved with being ketogenic. It's easy enough. You just have to change your food, the types of food you eat. It's literally that. Instead of buying this food at the supermarket, you're buying that food. You've got to be good. You can't go and hoover down some donuts for lunchtime because you felt like it. So you do have to be good. It doesn't cost you any more, though. People think, oh, those ketogenic diets, they're expensive because you've got to eat all that meat and all that healthy stuff. But the thing is, yes, you do eat the meat, but you're eating fatty meat, so you're not eating the prime steak, you're eating the fatty steaks. And you're not buying all the other crap that I see in people's supermarket baskets. They're loaded up to the brim with all sorts of other rubbish like biscuits and cakes and all that thing. Well, you don't eat any of that stuff. You just don't eat it. You don't buy it. You don't eat it. Don't even have it in the house. So you do save a lot of money. So let's say you think about switching over. The next question I have, and this will be where I finish off for the day, is how much fat do we need to get off your body? If, for example, you are, say, an average 40, 50-year-old, maybe a bit older. I'm personally, I've just turned my 60th birthday. So say you're 100 kilos and you're 40, 50, 60, then you can use what, as most people have heard of, the BMI, body mass index. Most people don't agree with the body mass index, especially if you're a bloke, because you say, oh, it doesn't take into account all of my muscle. But the body mass index can get pretty darn close to how much you should actually weigh. So if you can just go online and put in BMI, Google it, and it will come up with a couple of questions. You'll answer those, your height and all that sort of thing, and it'll pop out with your BMI range. If you took the maximum weight that you should be, for an average height guy, say, I'm 5'7", I'm a short ass, so let's say you were 5'8" to 5'10", anything like that. It might tell you that your BMI maximum, like your range might be 68 kilos through to 75 kilos. So therefore you could say that your maximum weight would be 75 kilos. Now that's your maximum healthy weight. If you can get down to that weight, then you will be very healthy. You'll feel a hell of a lot better. You'll be able to do all sorts of things that you probably can't at the moment. And you have the potential to have a much longer and much more energetic life. There's no point living longer if you're in a wheelchair or if you're just slobbering to yourself in bed. But if you've got a good life and you're nice and fit and capable for the next, if you're 50, let's face it, it would be nice to think you've got 60, 70, 80, there's 30 years, say another 5 after that, 85, you're not going to be running marathons, but there's nothing stopping you from still being active. So we're only talking about 20 or 30 years, so let's make those pretty bloody good years. So if you're 100 kilos today, which 220 pounds, I think it is. I think it's 2.2 you multiply it by. 100 kilograms, you can work that out in stones. I always get confused with stones. I'm from a metric country. And you need to get down to 75 kilos, then obviously you need to lose 25 kilograms, which is a quarter of your body weight. And that's going to take a while. And that's the thing that we need to understand. This isn't something that's going to happen over the next 2 months. It's something that will be able to happen over the next few years. And the hardest part is, of course, the start. If we can get the ball rolling, then we're in a position where we can lose. Generally, if you're on a good ketogenic diet and behaving yourself and doing a little bit of exercise and so on, there's no reason why you can't lose about a pound a week, I think, is the average these days. It's been a while since I've worked out that sort of average. So a pound a week means over a month, of course, there's 4 pounds, or around sort of, let's round it off to 2 kilograms a month. Over 12 months, there's 24 kilograms. So if you did everything perfectly for the entire year, you'd be able to lose those 25 kilos in just over a year. In reality, I would suggest you think, well, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, because you'll learn that the carbohydrates and the sugars and so on, they're just not very good for you all around. So you can expect over the next couple of years, you will get down to that sort of weight and you will be a different person. Let's face it, you don't want to get down to that weight and suddenly have it all disappear overnight, because your partner won't even know who the hell you are. None of all your friends will walk past you on the street and not know who you are as well. Also, as you lose weight slowly, in the keto method, you'll find your skin will get a lot better. There's so many different things that will happen to your body to the benefit of it. And one of them is that your skin will become better and more elastic. So as you lose weight, your skin will shrink. So you won't have all of those baggy issues that people who go on these really fast weight loss regimes have. You'll also incidentally find that all of your hormones will rectify themselves. So part of the fructose mechanism, when it's not only making you fat but also stopping you from feeling full is that it will play havoc with your hormones, and we can talk about that another day too. And when it does play havoc with your hormones, just about every part of your body metabolism is involved with a hormone. So when your hormones are screwed up, your whole body's going to be screwed up. One of those things that gets screwed up is your testosterone levels. You will probably find, if you're a horny bastard at the moment, then just ignore this, but you'll probably find that you will have a much better ability to enjoy yourself. And within a few weeks, because it does literally take that shorter time to make that sort of transition in your body. So it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. There was an ad on TV many years ago about that. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen, and that was about a shampoo. Probably not the same thing. So we need to work on small milestones. We can work it out with you. We can get that ball rolling. If you need coaching, then I can coach you. But if you don't need direct coaching and just want to know how to do it and want to follow my podcasts, and I've got newsletters that will pop up if you give me your email address on my website, then you're in a position where I can help you out with all that stuff, keep you motivated and so on, without you having to pay a penny or a cent, wherever you're from. If you feel that you probably need coaching to keep up the motivation levels, then I'm in a position to do that as well, and that would be at a small monthly fee. I'm just being open and honest with that one. Go to my website, which is seeyourtoesagain.com, and everything will become apparent there. You can give me your email address. There's a subscribe there, so that just gives me your email address, and then I can send you newsletters. I'll also let you know when more podcasts come on and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, it's been an enjoyment. I feel a lot better now than I did at the start when I was basically pooping bricks. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I'm a bit monotone. I'll try to get better next time at that. All right. See you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.